This panel was recorded Friday, March 19th, 2021, during the 15th Annual Public Administration Research Conference hosted by the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management at UCF. The panel is titled, In Service, Calling and a Calling for Higher Education Institutions, is a discussion moderated by Dr. Tom Breyer, UCF.
Welcome to our panel. In Service, I've changed the name of the panel. We've changed the name of the panel from what's written in the program to fit more with what we'll actually discuss here today. But in service, calling and a calling for higher education institutions. And so I'm going to jump in. I'll start by saying that the focus, the theme for this discussion today, national service and volunteerism, is not new for UCF. It's not new for the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management within the School of Public Administration. For several years, we hosted an AmeriCorp Vista, Volunteers in Service to AmeriCorp program. You can see some photographs on this slide depicting some of that. That Vista program with these three photos that are shown focused on homeless youth education. Basically, we hosted the Vista members, dispatched them to government, school district, and faith-based and nonprofit organizations to help build the capacity of those organizations in such a way that would help homeless youth not suffer academically because of their homeless condition or because their family is homeless or they're in a transition period in terms of housing or lack stable housing. So for a period of about 4 years, we implemented this AmeriCorp program focused on homeless youth education. A remarkable program, lots of strong results that I'm happy to talk through. Another example of volunteerism that we structured and implemented through a program at the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management is pictured in the top right corner. A program called Walking School Bus, which was funded by the Florida Department of Transportation, where we put out a team to organize safe walking routes from neighborhoods around different schools for kids to walk to school rather than sit in their parents' cars and sit in long queues to get dropped off. The walking school bus mapped the routes, walked the routes, organized and trained volunteers in the community to walk the routes, and ultimately led to some, again, wonderful success and sustained ongoing projects that have lasted beyond our direct involvement. So we have, as a center and as a school, a history of supporting volunteer initiatives and national service initiatives, and we're continuing that work as we'll discuss here today. Our agenda for today is to start with introductions, which we'll do in just a moment here with the panel members. Then we'll talk about higher education and national service, what it means, what the linkages might be, what the reason or rationale it might be for including national service and volunteerism within the activities and mission of higher education institutions. We'll present a history of national service generally, broadly, nationally and locally here in Florida and Orlando. And then we'll walk through a grant that we have submitted to Volunteer Florida and the Corporation for National Community Service to host a large AmeriCorp program starting later this year. And then we'll talk about grant challenges and opportunities and for higher ed institutions, what it means to do that. And we'll do that. We'll have that conversation in the context of the introduction of a new institute, which we encourage both here at UCF and at universities around the country. So before we jump into that, let's just do some introductions of the other panel members. So we'll start with in the order that you'll hear them speak. So that's me first. So I'm Tom Breyer, professor in the School of Public Administration, also leading in the Office of Downtown Community Engaged Scholarship at UCF Downtown. I've been at UCF since 2007 and was director of the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management during those programs that I pictured at the first slide, the VISTA program and the Walking School Bus program. And so my work in this area on citizen engagement and volunteerism is a core of my research agenda and community engagement agenda. And we'll talk more about that as we go. Next up, Jared Plant.
Thank you, Tom. Good morning, everybody. Thanks so much for being on here early on a Friday morning. Definitely appreciate you all being on. My name is Jared Plant. I proudly serve in the UCF Center for Community Schools. And what I basically do is help with community partnerships and community engagement in areas like this. One of our pillars in community schools is family and community engagement. And so that's really kind of that pillar, that area that I focus on. I am a proud alum of AmeriCorp. I served in AmeriCorps NCCC, or National Civilian Community Corps, in 2004, 2005 in the Southeast campus. Originally out of Charleston, South Carolina. And the reason why we moved, I'm originally from Massachusetts, and the reason why we moved to Orlando, Florida was actually because of national service. My teammate for life, Jordan, who we met during our year of service and doing NCCC, we moved down here as she was starting City Year Orlando, one of many AmeriCorps programs that you'll be hearing about later today. So definitely appreciate you all being on today, and I'll pass it over to Lizzie.
Thanks, Jared. Hi, my name is Lizzys Story. I am currently a master's student seeking my degree in nonprofit management. I am also assisting on this in-service AmeriCorps grant with Dr. Breyer. I am also an AmeriCorps alum. As Jared said, I worked with City Year Orlando for 2 years. My second year, I was a team leader, leading a team through their first service year. And I served at a middle school, a Title I school, in Orlando, and I was a mentor, tutor, hitting all those education marks to make sure that students are on track towards graduation. And with this grant and my assistantship, I'm really, honored to be a part of this. And I am a huge advocate for national service, and I believe that becoming, a center for advocating for national service will definitely change the direction of society. And I truly believe that with my heart. And, encouraging young people to engage with their community is something that I think is extremely important, especially today. So welcome. Thank you for being here. And I'll hand it back to Dr. Breyer.
Thanks so much, Jared and Lizzie, two excellent members of our team now and then moving into the future with this work. So to jump in, yesterday there was some news out of UCF and the State University System of Florida. U.S. News and World Report for the third consecutive year ranked the Florida State University System first in the nation on a variety of measures. So of all the state university systems throughout public university systems throughout the country, Florida's has been ranked the best 3 years running. The measures that are usually used or typically used in these kinds of rankings for individual institutions and for whole systems include those that are listed on the screen here. The 4-year graduation rate, the cost of degree after financial aid per student, the annual student debt after graduation, bachelor's grads continuing their education or employed after they finish their bachelor's degree, the number of bachelor's degrees or percentage of bachelor's degrees that are awarded overall and to Hispanic and African American students specifically, the total research expenditure within the university. So what are the research grants? What is the total sum value of research grants, federal and otherwise, that are received by institutions, and the number of patents that are awarded. These measures all focus to some extent on financial issues, economic issues, some of course, student success issues, timeliness to completion of program, things of this nature. But what's missing in the typical measures are metrics that concern a narrative or purpose of higher education, which is often talked about but not really measured in any systematic way. And that's an issue of preparing students to be active, ethical citizens in our society. As an alternative ranking system, so we can celebrate UCF and State University system for being ranked #1 on measures like these, but there's an alternative set of measures that are important. We can look at those that are published by a nonprofit newspaper called the Washington Monthly. Washington Monthly publishes annual rankings of universities on 3 core measures. One, the social mobility rank of the university, the research rank of the university, and the service rank of the university. Social mobility concerns or includes measures including access to Pell Grants, the default rate of students who graduate and then take out loans, and whether or not they're paying back on time, or at least begin paying within, I believe it's 5 years of degree completion. What their salary is adjusted for cost of living 10 years after graduation, and some other measures that concern financial well-being of the students post-graduation. So the mobility, social mobility of those who graduate. The research rank is very much aligned with what we see with the U.S. News World Report and other rankings that are championed and measures that are championed by the Florida Legislature and Board of Trustees, Board of Governors, where we look at the total number of patents, the total research expenditure, grants received, the number of National Academy members that are employed as faculty within the university, measures like this as contributing to the research rank of the institution. The service rank, which is our interest today in the context of our discussion, includes in their system 4 measures. One, Peace Corps rank. What percentage of alumni joined and serve in the Peace Corps after graduation? 2, ROTC rank. What percentage of the student body are ROTC members? 3, what percentage of federal work-study funds are spent on community service? Or what percentage of federal work-study students are doing community service as part of their work-study obligation? 4, I guess there are 5 measures. 4, does the institution provide a match to the AmeriCorp Siegel Education Award, which I'll just describe what that is in just a little bit. And 5th, are they contributing to the mobilization of students as voters in elections processes? All of that combines to create the service rank of the institution, which is basically a measure of citizenship. Are we preparing students for active, ethical citizenship in our communities? You can see UCF is ranked 103 out of 329 institutions ranked for service. Not bad, not great. We're in that middle of the pack somewhere. But you can see the other measures for UCF were ranked 55 out of 329 on social mobility. That's really kind of good. Research 107 out of 329. Again, not bad, looking pretty good. But the argument is that we can boost these rankings as an institution with strategic investment in certain areas, including national service and volunteerism. And as we'll suggest, investing in national service and volunteerism contributes to and links to success in the other metrics that are tracked by the state, that are tracked by U.S. News and World Report and other ranking ventures that are out there. So this is an alternative ranking. Again, Washington Monthly is a publication. These are 2020 rankings, so the most current rankings available. We can do better as an institution, as can many. The top performing institution on service is University of San Diego. George Washington U, my alma mater for my master's, is number 2. And you can see the other list. American University, my alma mater for my bachelor's, is number 4. So you can see that listing there. And now that I see that GW and American are there, I'm maybe getting a sense in my mind as to why I have the orientation that I have, right? It maybe paid off in that. The number 1 university overall across all rankings of social mobility, research, and service was Stanford University. They perform the best across all dimensions. So I would like you to just keep this in mind, keep these figures in mind, keep these statistics in mind, keep these rankings in mind as we go through the conversation. Because what we're suggesting is that we need to go beyond what we're celebrating yesterday and today. That State University System of Florida is ranked best in the nation by U.S. News and World Report with these measures. Our argument, our suggestion is these measures are not enough to communicate and to celebrate the potential impacts that are had in community beyond those traditional metrics. And so let me unpack these a little bit, starting with Federal Work Study. Federal Work Study, it provides financial assistance to students who have financial need, documented financial need, in exchange for working a fixed number of hours. They receive the financial benefit, which is not a loan. They don't have to pay it back. It's part of their contract that they sign in order to get the financial support they need to study. As an example, when I was a bachelor's student at American University, I was a federal work study student, worked in the child daycare center on the campus. And so I worked with toddlers for 10 hours a week or something like that. That was my federal work study job. The law for work study is written to encourage, and this is quoting on the slide, to encourage students receiving federal student financial assistance to participate in community service activities that will benefit the nation and engender in the students a sense of social responsibility and commitment to the community. This is the purpose of work study. Additionally, the law states that to the maximum extent practicable, federal work study assignments should complement and reinforce the educational program or vocational goals of each student. So looking at something like that, I would question really my American U experience. Working in a daycare center was kind of fun and enjoyable and a nice break from the obligations of studying, but didn't really contribute to my vocational goals, whatever they might have been at that time. As a political science major, they weren't in daycare, right? So there's an opportunity for putting students into community positions, working in community as part of their federal work study obligation. The minimum requirement by federal law is 7% of federal work study funds need to go to community service or community-based projects. UCF has 15% of federal work study funds going to community-based projects. It's an area we can lift up. Federal law requires a 25% match requirement provided by the institution for all federal work study students. That match is waived for students who are serving as reading or math tutors of elementary school students. So there's clear opportunity to link and bridge this population of students with community service, community engagement, and volunteerism as part of our mission. AmeriCorp, another example that we can discuss here is the AmeriCorps Schools of National Service model as a means to demonstrate support of volunteerism and national service and attract students who are high-performing, passionate students who will help the university rise through the ranks of on-time completion, future employment, future salary, other such measures. The Corporation for National Community Service has a program where they classify schools, universities as schools of national service. What are listed here are the criteria that must be met. At least I think one or two of them must be met in order for a school to be designated as a school of national service. One, they can provide a match to the Siegel AmeriCorps Education Award. At the end of the year of service, AmeriCorps members are given an education award. I think the value is somewhere around $5,500 approximately. Lizzie, do you know? You're getting it now, right? So what is the value?
My award for 2 service years, it's six grand, just about.
Okay.
Yeah, no, that's 1 service year, so it's about 12 grand.
12. Okay.
Yep.
So about $6,000 for a year of national service through one of the AmeriCorps programs. So universities have the opportunity to match that, either dollar for dollar or half of they can match up to half. They can match as a whole university or within a single program. So, for instance, public school programs in the School of Public Administration we can raise the money through foundation to match the education award or partially match the education award and attract more AmeriCorps members, these passionate, committed students. UCF right now is not a match institution, as most institutions are not. This is an unfortunate reality and an opportunity. Another possible pathway here is to provide a scholarship or fellowship to AmeriCorps alumni, in addition to, or maybe in place of, the match award. Third, give priority points for admission consideration for AmeriCorps alumni. Fourth, in-state tuition for AmeriCorps alumni. So even if the institution will not provide a match to the education award, it would be great for somebody. You got people like Jared, who came from out of state. He didn't come to study at UCF for his master's, right? I don't think, right? So, but it would have been great if we could see people like Jared out there and say, we want them to study at UCF because we know they're committed, they're passionate, they're public service oriented, and we know that they'll be successful in our programs, but they can't afford our high out-of-state tuition. So can we provide in-state tuition for AmeriCorps alumni? Expenses like books, supplies, room, board, other personal costs provided to support AmeriCorps members. Enrollment deferrals for individuals to serve in AmeriCorps, and we'll talk about that in the context of a gap year program, which is part of our thinking, as well as academic credit for AmeriCorps experience, which is part of our plan as well with the program that we'll be talking about here in just a moment. So these are some concrete actions that can be taken that can help a university rise through the ranks on service, but also related to these other dimensions of social mobility and research. Another thing, and linked to that, is this idea of employers of national service. Corporation for National Community Service has a program where they get pledges from employers, currently 600 employers around the country, who say they will give preference to individuals who have AmeriCorps or Peace Corps experience in their hiring decisions. This is a clear leg up if the institution is supporting national service to then help place our alumni or the institution's alumni into paid employment with good salaries within their field of study. All of that contributes to rising through the ranks beyond the service rank, but recognizes the importance of the ranks of U.S. News Report, News and World Report, and what the measures are that Florida legislature is concerned about as well. So overall, our suggestion is that higher ed investment in national service and volunteerism pays off for higher ed institutions by cultivating and attracting high-performing students, reducing student debt through the education award and matching the award, or providing scholarships or support for housing and other costs. Provides access to research funding. Institutions that host national service programs have access to funding to support evaluation research and other research on citizenship and engagement and volunteerism. And it pays off further through helping to cultivate community partnerships and supporters. For instance, just a week ago, I guess, President Biden signed the American Rescue Act, in which there is an increase in the budget for the Corporation for National Community Service, for AmeriCorp, of $1 billion. That's not replacement money. That's new money going to national service. That is a clear indication that the government, the national government, the federal government is committed to continuing the support of these kinds of programs, to offering partnership with institutions and organizations throughout the country in support of volunteerism and national service as a strategy to address some of the complex needs that we have in our society. That, along with all of the known supporters from these employers, the employers of national service, the sponsors of City Year, that are out there from the corporate community and philanthropic community. All of these are signs that there are willing partners that are ready to join with us in efforts. And then the investment pays off through future employment for alumni as well. So ultimately, investing in service increases ranks in research, increases ranks in social mobility, ultimately increases ranks in reputation, the ranking in U.S. News and World and in other places as well. So service pays, in other words. So with that, I'm going to pass it on to Jared to talk about some broader history of national service and the kinds of programs that exist in national service throughout the country and then locally here in Florida. Jared?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Breyer. I appreciate that. And just to kind of dovetail on what Tom was talking about in that investment piece, and Lizzie spoke about her education award. I was very fortunate at the time. It was less than $6,000. But I was able to maximize that amount by putting it toward a certificate program. And at UCF, we have the Certificate in Nonprofit Management Leadership, the CNP designation, which is great. Although I didn't get it through UCF, I got it through the Nonprofit Leadership Alliance directly, and with LSUS, there was a great partnership between them, whereby AmeriCorps alum can take advantage of that and get their CNP and use their education award for that. And then I was able to dovetail the two courses that I took from LSUS as part of my doctoral program at UCF. So it was a way to kind of expand that. And as Dr. Breyer was alluding to, it's also looking at the investment pieces that we can do through higher education and the schools of national service. So thank you, Dr. Breyer, for that. So when we talk about university and community service, there are a lot of different opportunities in which we can do that. And UCF has been part of the Carnegie Community Engagement Classification almost since its inception, which is great. And so they look at different pieces of criteria across, pervasively and in depth across the campus as to what we're doing when it comes to community engagement more specifically. And so, of course, there's general volunteering through episodic pieces. It might be a campus activity that's going on, or some kind of traditional main event that takes place, or there might be some ongoing service. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a moment. There are internships, paid or unpaid internships that happen that revolve around, volunteerism. Externships. So I know UCF is really good about taking advantage of that time off that we have either during spring break or even winter break to do externships and partner with organizations like City Year, for example, to allow and really partner so that students can get that opportunity and kind of test drive some of the volunteer opportunities that might be out there through externships. Of course, service learning, whether it's academic service learning courses or just general service learning, there's a great opportunity to do that. And I know that we have at UCF, we have that designation on both, the student college transcripts that designate that as well, which is a nice perk, especially for students who want to go on to grad school. That's something that is really kind of a feather in their cap. capstone courses. So especially in different areas with like lead scholars or our honors in the major and things like that, other courses and other departments and schools, they have capstone courses that allow for students, whether it's individually or in teams, to be able to do capstone courses in volunteerism. Different direct studies, similarly, alternative break programs. I know for me personally, my alternative break program that I did when I went to UMass Dartmouth in my undergrad in Massachusetts, it was a life-altering experience for me because I took advantage and participated. We went to Anniston, Alabama. We built homes through the Jimmy Carter Project with Habitat. We served with, I think it was 6 other colleges and universities across the country and 2 AmeriCorps NCCC teams. And so that's how I found out about AmeriCorps in general. When I came back, I spoke to one of our recruiters on campus who had done Peace Corps, and she told me about AmeriCorps and what great things AmeriCorps was doing, and that's kind of helped start my pathway to where I am today. So those are some great opportunities and great examples of the university community service that we can do. So I put this up, the Volunteer UCF Continuum. This is something where it's just more or less a visual of where students come from as they enter into college, and then where they go once they leave school, right? So, research says that there are 75% or more students that participate in either a general volunteerism or service learning courses in their high school. More often or not, they're going to actually want to seek that out proactively when they get into college. And so in college at UCF, we have what's called Volunteer UCF, which is an SGA funded agency on campus. So it's part of the student affairs side of the house, right? Student success. But what's great about them as an agency is that it is all student led. And so Volunteer UCF breaks it out where, students, the student leaders are basically the directors of different social topic areas. So it might be hunger and homelessness, it might be different abilities, veterans awareness, so on and so forth. And then they have a committee of other student leaders who form a committee to then partner with nonprofit organizations, faith-based organizations to work on educational and service projects. So on the continuum, oftentimes students are actually seeking those opportunities. And, for a lot of students that are just getting their feet wet, they might be looking for those episodic volunteer opportunities on campus, right? Those one-off opportunities that may take place with a nonprofit organization. And then eventually they'll start to kind of look at and say, okay, I really am intrigued about this particular social topic. So I'm gonna do that. I want to do that a little bit more frequently. So they'll do some ongoing projects, right? And then eventually they might go and do something like an alternative break trip, so that they are more immersed in the community that they're serving. And then there's a period of time for those student leaders that want to continue doing this, that now, instead of just participating in those, they actually want to lead others. They want to lead their peers in those spaces. And so with Volunteer UCF, they might become a committee member to start, right, with like hunger and homelessness to help set those things up. And then eventually maybe they want to become the student director for that social topic area on hunger and homelessness. And then eventually, and we've seen this often in Volunteer UCF, and I was a GA when I was going for my doctorate, so I saw it firsthand, that they want to move into a space of either an assistant director or even a director for either Volunteer UCF or the alternative break program. And then when we talk about the commitment piece, and as students are looking for that next opportunity once they leave school, they might be seeking opportunities in the public sector, right? Or in the military, or in Peace Corps or AmeriCorps. They're looking for those opportunities to give back. And, oftentimes when we see some of the service learning, oftentimes people think of education or arts and humanities. But what we've seen more recently is that this is happening from all different disciplines. it really just depends on what they're excited about in terms of their passion, their career goals, and what they want to do. But, really creating that culture of service is a way of giving back. So that's what the Volunteer UCF Continuum does. So, of course, it is also a pathway to employment. So I know Dr. Breyer kind of alluded to this a little bit before, and here are some statistics that I won't necessarily bore you with. You can read those on the slide. But basically, it really does show that whether it's that general volunteering or service learning opportunities or national service, giving your life to service, whether it's a year or more, like in Lizzie's case, doing 2 years of service, that it really does create that pathway to employment because of the skill sets that it brings. I know for me personally, my first job was with the Boy Scouts of America, and I got that job, and I was really excited to be a district executive and lead teams of people to do recruitment and operations and summer camp. And I only found out as I was leaving to go back to school, my supervisor told me that the reason why I got the position over others was because of my time in AmeriCorps. He did a mission trip as a Mormon. He did a mission trip and saw what and learned of what I did and what he did, and knowing, the skill sets that are there, the hard work, the dedication, the persistence that occurs with that, and saw that in himself, and he saw me doing the same thing, and as to why he brought me on into that space. So it definitely has impacted me, and I can tell you firsthand that volunteering definitely is a great pathway to employment.
Jared, if I could just jump in there.
Lizzie, go ahead.
Yeah. With my experience with Pathway to Employment, mine was more geared towards higher education. During my second year, we have a LACY plan, or it's called Life After City Year, and it's where we develop our plan going forward. At the time, I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do. And then I just had this random idea that I should go pursue my master's just because I will have $12,000 to spend. And so that's when I started looking to UCF's online nonprofit management master's program. But it wasn't until I talked to our development team right before we had an event that they placed me at the UCF table, and I met Dr. Breyer and Brenda at the City Year event. And the networking, we had networking connections and all that stuff. And that's when Dr. Breyer and I, connected. And, throughout the rest of the year, towards the summer, he invited me to speak on my experience and one of his lectures. And then I was invited through this connection with AmeriCorp. So it's not just limited to employment. It's definitely, open to any type of pathway for the AmeriCorp member. Especially in education. I think that's really important, especially since most AmeriCorp members want to pursue their degree after their service year, and connecting them to resources at the universities are very important going forward. So thanks, Jared.
Yeah, thank you, Lizzie. That's a great example too. So appreciate that. So now, what is AmeriCorp, right? We've been kind of talking about this, and for those who are really wanting to learn a little bit more about that, we figured we would play this video for you. It's only a 2.5 minute video to kind of go through that. So Tom, if you want to just hit play.
So you have questions about AmeriCorp? Well, you've come to the right place, because we're here to help. First off, let's clear up one thing right away. You might be wondering how to say or spell AmeriCorp. Sometimes people pronounce the P, but don't make that same mistake. AmeriCorp is alive and well, just spelled with a silent P. So think of Apple Core, or core of the earth. Now that we have that clear, what exactly is AmeriCorp anyways? AmeriCorp is simply Americans of all ages and backgrounds dedicating their time and skills to get things done. There we go. So how does AmeriCorp get things done? More than 80,000 Americans across the country join AmeriCorp each year, and all of them are tackling different problems in different ways. For example, AmeriCorp members help families attain affordable homes. They mentor students so that they stay in school Perhaps there is a tornado, a flood, a forest fire, or a hurricane. AmeriCorps members also help communities recover from disasters. There's so many more things that AmeriCorps members do. But if we said it all, we'd be here all day. Why do we call them members, you ask? AmeriCorps members spend anywhere from 3 months to a year dedicating their time and skills to serve. They can volunteer with nonprofits, schools, public agencies, and community and faith-based organizations. And in case you were wondering, there are a few perks AmeriCorps members get, including money to pay for college, student loan deferment, training, living allowance, health benefits, and job opportunities with leading employers. Not too bad, right? All right. What's the purpose of AmeriCorps? Like the military or the Peace Corps, AmeriCorps is a way to serve a country. AmeriCorps members make Americans safer, stronger, and healthier, and they strengthen our communities. But above all, AmeriCorps members get things done. That's it. That's what AmeriCorps is. Learn more about AmeriCorps at AmeriCorps.gov.
So there's your tutorial on AmeriCorps. Now, I will say that is a technically an old AmeriCorps logo, but I mean, Lizzie, I can't speak for you, but I definitely love the older logo compared to the newer logo.
Yes, I did too.
Yeah.
Strike that from the recording, please.
Yeah, right. Yeah. So these are just, again, some of the focus areas for national service. You know, we talked about the environmental piece, education, disaster relief, veterans and military services. One of the things, of course, that it didn't have on there, that of course is newer, is helping with the pandemic. That's what a lot of AmeriCorps members are doing right now, is really helping to, I know at least with AmeriCorps and CCC, is helping with the contact tracing initially, and now helping with the vaccines, the vaccinations. FEMA Corps, for example, they're the ones, we have 4 FEMA sites that are across the state of Florida, and they're in participation of that too. So as a result, what I've heard through the grapevine is at some point down the road, there might even be a new AmeriCorps program called Health Corps that might be established. So more to come on that, but these are some of the focus areas. It'll be on the next slide too. Yep, so healthy futures, capacity building, and obviously economic opportunity. And I know that Lizzie will be talking more about those pieces in a little bit. So these are some national statistics, if you will, around AmeriCorps. So 21,000 locations. Again, leveraging $1 billion, and we're going to see that that's going to be compounded because of the new reinvestment that the Biden administration and legislators have invested into this. More than a million of us have served, including Lizzie and I. So, and as you've seen, it doesn't mean that you hit a certain age and that's it. You can serve at almost any age. It just depends on the program. And then more locally, like in Florida, there we go. There are 2,300 service sites. CNCS has provided more than $81,000 in funding. We have both Senior Corps and AmeriCorps members. And then since '94, $98 million in AmeriCorps scholarships have been earned. And, Lizzie and I just kind of spoke on that. So we're part of that statistic, which is exciting. So the Service Collective, this is something I'll go through fairly quickly. So back a couple of years ago, almost 3 years ago now, we took a look at what was going on with UCF and national service. And Dr. Breyer alluded to the fact that he had an AmeriCorps Vista grant. And after the 3-year grant, it kind of faded, and there were other opportunities that could have presented themselves and just didn't. And we wanted to know what was the connection, though, at least from like a recruitment strategy and whatnot from these national service programs into UCF to really attract those UCF students. And there really wasn't any. There was no strategy. There was no UCF or national service strategy. There was a Peace Corps recruiter on campus, however, I would say that, which was really exciting. So all of these things gave, at the time in the Center for Community Partnerships, the idea of why don't we incubate something that could be helpful for all of those things, and bringing together all of those national service components and programs together. So that's why we started the Service Collective. So it's those programs such as City Year and Public Allies, Teach for America, FEMA Corps, National Civilian Community Corps, so on and so forth, that are part of the collective. We also have some of those national service national partnering organizations, such as Volunteer Florida, to understand what's happening at the state level. CNCS, or AmeriCorp, which is now regionalized, right? So our region is up in Atlanta. So really understanding what's going on from a regional standpoint. And then also from the national standpoint with Service Year Alliance, and they do a lot of advocacy work on behalf of national service. And so we really wanted to invite them in so that we had a sense of what was happening when it came to trends and gaps and opportunities that we would be able to leverage here in the Central Florida community. And we usually, we meet once per month, and really try to figure out how can we best, even though we're looking at this from our own organizations, we wanted to break down those silos that Dr. Breyer was talking about earlier, and work on a way of doing this together, or our tagline, one service year. Because even though there might be different social topics, different programs, there are a lot of similar issues that are there that we can address together. So we created a tagline, a mission, and vision last year that we're trying to kind of more or less implement and guide us strategically through this process. So if you want to, Tom, if you want to go to the next slide, we also have focus areas, value focus areas. So you can read those there, but basically outreach, service, advocacy, scholarship, and partnership. Those are the value focus areas and the reasons behind those pieces. This was all, again, established last year with our Service Collective as a way of creating a pathway for us to move into things strategically as we're trying to work on some of these different projects and objectives within the community. So we have some impact that we can share real quick on the next slide. So first, and I can put some of this in the chat in a moment, we created what's called the Service Matrix BuzzFeed quiz. So it was a really great opportunity to take all of the different programs, and we leveraged the Office of Student Involvement and put together a quiz whereby if you took the quiz, it would spit out exactly what organization you might be interested in based on your social topic, area of interest, your career path, and your skill set. And it's been leveraged for people to identify that. And then the next thing that we do as a way to kind of connect in as a next step is a partnership between Volunteer Florida and UCF to have the first ever AmeriCorp member, or AmeriCorp recruiter. So it's a non-program specific AmeriCorp recruiter. We already had a Peace Corps recruiter. Why not have an AmeriCorp recruiter? So we are the first university to have such a thing. And Volunteer Florida is paying for that person 25 hours non-student OPS position to pay for that person to basically be that access point for the different AmeriCorp programs to work on outreach and recruitment opportunities on behalf of the student body. So that's connecting in with different faculty and staff on campus, to do classroom visits or tabling or, Market Wednesdays, those kinds of things, which is really exciting. So it's a way of not just doing these one-offs, but really kind of integrating all of these different component pieces together. We just recently started Jumpstart, which is really exciting. Jumpstart is an AmeriCorp program based in Boston that really it connects the UCF students to kindergarten age children to get them ready for kindergarten. So it's a way of, they do 300 hours of service is the target for them. And it's a way by which they are full-time students, but are getting a taste of national service, of AmeriCorps, and working on literacy and reading comprehension. And the timing couldn't be any better with the pandemic and the learning loss that's taking place to be able to start that program and implement that. And right now, we're at OCPS ACE and Orlando Day Nursery down in Paramore. So those are really important things that we've established, because then it also gives a taste for them if they wanted to do a full service year down the road. So replicating this model, we're trying to do this in Boston right now. They're working on this. The AmeriCorps recruiter that I mentioned before, they just replicated that. Volunteer Florida just replicated that at the University of Miami. So they're also working on creating a service collective in Miami as well at that university. So there are a lot of pieces to this that I think will that could be beneficial, especially connecting into a grant like this, which what Dr. Breyer and Lizzie are doing, and it just really kind of hits home all the different components that we're doing and working on the integration pieces of that to be more impactful. So Lizzie, I'll pass it over to you.
Perfect. Thanks, Jared. So now we've talked about higher ed connecting to national service, the Central Florida Service Collective, what that means for UCF and for the Central Florida community for AmeriCorps programs. And now we're going to talk about our operations proposal that we've been working on since October of this year on a Volunteer Florida planning grant. So our UCF AmeriCorps program proposal is going to be funded through the state and national funding source through Volunteer Florida. This program was designed to alleviate economic and educational burdens from COVID-19. I'll go into detail about the interventions later. We are anticipating our start date to be September in 2021, so this year, and to be a full service year to September 2022. We hope that this will be a continuous program and that we can build upon this program and it can be sustainable for UCF and our communities. This grant, this operation proposal will partner with local nonprofits and community partnership schools. Jared, you talked about that for a little bit, but the community partnership schools are located through Central Florida and throughout the state. And then our hope is to also create a 212 program. This is pretty unique because most AmeriCorps members either serve directly after college or obtaining their bachelor's degree, or serve right after high school. With this program, we hope to target Valencia students specifically who are wanting to transition to UCF. So they will go to school for 2 years at Valencia, take a gap year to serve with AmeriCorps for 1 year, and then transition into UCF. The 1 year is really incredible because not only do they gain the service experience, all the skills that they need, but they also get an award for their post degrees, and then they also connect and build those relationships, and they can focus on the career choice or the degree they want to by joining those AmeriCorps programs. And then finally, this proposal is set to recruit about 50% of these AmeriCorps members, or ACMs as we like to call them, from the Veterans Affair. And we think this is an incredible opportunity to join the two institutions together. So it's the perfect scenario for veterans trying to transition back into civilian life to serve their community and become more invested and more grounded in their life. You can go to the next. Okay. So why this grant? Why this program? Again, I said the COVID-19 economic collapse exposed financial burdens and education and nutritional devastations that were already there before COVID. And these communities are in desperate need for assistance. Also, our local organizations that serve these communities and populations are challenged by resource constraints. I was at a Christian Service Center about a few months ago, and they're located in Paramore area, and they've become sort of like a hub for smaller nonprofits that don't have buildings and that have a very, very little budget, very small budget. And because of COVID-19, they weren't able to expand their budget. And so they had to be absorbed into Christian Service Center, who then became a hub. So that's an example of how desperate these nonprofits are to get people to serve and to really expand the resources with limited funding. And again, the urgency for solidarity and community collaboration as we navigate through this time, it's important as well. You can go to the next slide. Okay, so our focus areas for this program are going to be economic opportunity, healthy futures, K through 12 success. Next slide will be the interventions. So far, our pledge organizations are Christian Service Center located here in Orlando. They serve homeless populations, assisting in the job center, rapid rehousing, and emergency assistance, food, clothing, all that stuff. Heavenly Nutrition Consultants are also locally to Orlando. They help communities and food desert communities gain access to healthy foods. They also provide nutritional education and food budgeting as well. Rebuilding Central Florida is located in Altamont Springs, so Central Florida. They help homeowners who live in deteriorating homes rebuild them for, I think, a very affordable price. So the process of that is that they also train them and educate them on proper home ownership, insurance, what it means to maintain a home. And so it is safe and affordable. And then we also are partnering with Second Harvest Food Bank, very well-known organization. This organization and this program will partner to assist those who are also struggling to get food for their households, especially healthy food. And we are also distributing food to schools, Title I schools in Orlando, whose students need access to food. And then lastly, we are partnering with 19 UCF Community Partnership schools. This is the educational aspect. We will be employing our AmeriCorp members to touch upon academic coursework, behavior initiatives, and attendance, because as we all well know, there's a lot of educational loss since COVID-19. And schools are sort of in this limbo period, trying to figure out how they're going to create a normal teaching routine environment. And so our AmeriCorp members will assist in that, assist the schools, especially in behavior and attentiveness, because that's a very large problem, especially with online learning. Our intervention. So for economic opportunity, we're focusing on job readiness, financial literacy, and affordable housing. Our expected outcome is increased economic sufficiency long-term. For short-term, we want to increase the employment rate and educate people how to budget their money so that they can be economically sufficient. Healthy Futures will provide access to healthy food for food desert communities. Something really unique to Heavenly Nutrition, which is obviously one of our partners. They have a mobile food truck that is a retired city bus. They've transformed it into a produce truck. So they actually drive around to those communities who are not mobile. They aren't able to move from their location, and they bring the produce that they normally can't get anywhere else. And they also provide, nutritional education and all that stuff. So our AmeriCorp members will be working with them, and then also Second Harvest Food Bank to increase food access and to decrease chronic illnesses that are prevalent to these communities due to unhealthy eating patterns and lack of access to healthy food. K through 12 success, our educational model, again, will mentor and tutor students, academics, behavior, and attendance. And our hope for long-term is to increase on-time grade progression and also increase educational aspirations, get students inspired to actually go to college, to pursue their degrees, and to, go into careers that fulfill their purpose. Yeah, next slide. So how will we do this? How will we, make this program final and successful? So we are leveraging university resources. So AmeriCorp members are typically trained, recruited, trained, and developed by leveraging university resources for recruitment. We're using Central Florida Service Collective, as Jared said, our AmeriCorp recruiter, to target those students in Valencia and UCF. And then we will train them using university resources, faculty, those who are experts in their field and want to contribute towards the AmeriCorp learning experience and professional development experience. This program will be assessed, evaluated, and managed. So the ACMs will either expand services or engage in services not yet implemented. So with Heavenly Nutrition, the food truck, that service already exists, but the AmeriCorp members will be adding more towards that program. And then with Christian Service Center, their services are not yet implemented specifically for the job center. They're still kind of in that period where they're trying to figure it out. So the AmeriCorp members will help the organization organize their programming and really assist and further impact those communities. And then obviously these services are very unique to the organization that they will be serving. Okay, you can get next. Okay, so I want to briefly talk about what it means to serve with AmeriCorp. And I put the title as Spirit, Purpose, and Pride because with City Year, that was our kind of like our tagline. We were very peppy and we were always about spirit, purpose, and pride. Like you have a high spirit, you have a fulfilled spirit because you have your purpose and you were very prideful about it. So a service year is extremely life-changing experience. I learned so much, won't go into detail, but that's the year, those 2 years is when I really figured out who I was or who I am. And I probably wouldn't have figured that out without doing 2 service years. So I wanted to talk about how as a higher education, how can we redefine what it means to take a gap year? So as Jared and Dr. Breyer talked, AmeriCorp isn't just for young people. It is for, any age, especially senior corps who they recruit retired persons to serve their, continue serving their communities. But I want to focus on ages 18 to 24 because that is kind of like the core of AmeriCorp and taking gap year. From my experience, my understanding from talking to peers my age, they believe that taking a gap year is taking a year off because you don't know what you're doing with your life and you're not really sure the direction, and maybe that will lead into taking another gap year and so on. And so there's this idea in our society that once you graduate college, you should go straight into a career, right? But that's actually not really the case. And we should really challenge that idea because taking a gap year, service year with AmeriCorp is building those skills that you would get, or not get by going to your career right after college. Also developing your purpose and figuring out what you want to do in life and how you will be contributing towards society. In my service year, with City Year, we do this thing called Why I Serve. And it's a really important workshop. It's throughout the year. And we build upon why we serve. Why am I here right now doing what I do? And by the end of the year, everyone understands their why. And that actually contributes and is really encompassing their entire purpose in life. Everyone's why looks different. My why is, I want to empower the next generation that will lead our society. And so as a higher education institution, we need to really challenge that idea of taking a gap year and targeting those students at Valencia or UCF that will serve their communities and be very successful at it. I wrote down a question that we can all ponder is, so how can we encourage, empower the next generation of people to advocate for civic service or to be those civilians that contribute towards the betterment of our society? So that's a question to ponder. So the pride aspect of this is building a vast network of AmeriCorps alumni in Central Florida. There's already an alumni. I'm on an alumni board right now, but I think it's really important for us as an institution to build that network within UCF and then spread it out. Because it is pride. You serve a year, you contributed, and you continue serving. And that's really what AmeriCorps is about. You don't just serve for 1 year, you serve for your entire life, even if you're not technically with AmeriCorps. This will empower, obviously transform society, and really leave an impact and leave behind a legacy for future generations. So that's my take on it. And this program proposal will definitely be the seed that we implant in the institution to grow the spirit, purpose, and pride of the AmeriCorps experience in UCF. So thank you.
Thank you, Lizzie. And before I move to the next slide, I'll just observe that Lizzie is such a great member of our AmeriCorps planning grant team. It's a growing team as we develop this thing. But as particularly you're talking on this last slide, Lizzie, the thought that comes to my mind is, as an institution, as a higher ed institution, shouldn't we be interested in getting more students like Lizzie into our programs? And then we can do that by being a hub for national service and volunteerism. Just so you can hear the passion in Lizzie's voice and through her words, and that's something that we can achieve as we build out what is possible, not only at UCF, but at higher ed institutions throughout the country. And with that, to close, one thing that we are interested in doing is calling for, not only at UCF, but at institutions, at higher ed institutions around the country, something like what we're calling in our shop within the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management, the Institute for National Service Research through Volunteer Involvement and Civic Engagement. This is an evolving entity that we will hopefully formally launch once the operational grant comes in to our pocket. But it's something that we don't want to stop and advocate for stopping at UCF's borders. This is an idea, whether it be called an institute, a center, an office, an initiative, or something else at higher ed institutions around the country. This is a strategically wise investment to pool all of the research, service, economic drivers of higher ed into a single seamless kind of research entity, research and service entity. There are other universities around the country, and we can name names if we want to, that host AmeriCorps programs and that host national service programs. But what we see in those institutions is typically service, national service and volunteerism is picked up and put into a corner over here, and they do their work, they do their service. There are some great markers of outreach and engagement with the community, but there's no integration with the other aspects of higher ed. There's no integration with research, or little. There's no integration with the economic drivers of the university. There's no integration with the metrics that are used in some of these rankings, including future employment, future salary, on-time graduation, measures like this, where we see the data clearly telling us that students who serve are also students who will succeed further in life on all of these measures. And these are the same measures that are critical for us in higher ed institutions. So our call is here at UCF, and what we're looking to do at UCF through the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management and at institutions around the country, is to create something like an in-service entity, Institute for National Service Research, through volunteer involvement and civic engagement, an action research, participatory action research, community engaged entity that drives this work to integrate the service, the research, the economic development, and so on. At UCF, we're ready to launch. We have the proposal in the hands being reviewed right now by Volunteer Florida and Corporation for National Community Service. And we have a team ready to go. You've met two of them on this panel. Jared and Lizzie are the core members of the team who will drive this institute and drive the AmeriCorp program. We also have Maritza Concha, Dr. Concha, who's a lecturer in the School of Public Administration, an expert in performance management and program evaluation. She is a part of our team. Danny Siegler, Dr. Siegler, is going to be working with us in the next few months to help align some of the academic opportunities and helping to arrange for course credit aligned with AmeriCorps service. Justin Miller is part of our team with the Center for Public and Nonprofit Management, and it's through him that we have the relationship with the Veterans Academic Resource Center and our, I hope not too ambitious and I hope realistic goal of 50% of AmeriCorps members as veterans. I think it's such a worthy goal, and it's great that we're moving in that direction. So we've got a team ready to go, ready to launch, ready to run with this thing. And it's something that we would like to see at institutions around the country. But we have to be realistic as well, because most AmeriCorps programs are hosted by nonprofit organizations or municipal governments. Very few are hosted by universities and institutions of higher education. And unfortunately, there's a reason for that. The bureaucracy is a burden. Not just the national service bureaucracy, but the university bureaucracy is a burden. And when you put two big bureaucracies together, even when they're in the same state, working with the same interest of getting AmeriCorps members placed, the battling bureaucracies require a good bit of patience and finesse, creativity, flexibility in order to move this through. And it's a time investment that is not clearly within the scope of the mission of universities as it's currently conceived at many places, because we're driven by these U.S. News and World Report rankings and these measures that are used and that are advocated by the Florida legislature and other authorities in Florida, rather than some of these citizenship-oriented measures, which are just as, if not more important than these economic measures that dominate these other systems. So just quickly, I know we're a little short on time and we want to answer questions, but these are some of the challenges that we have to be in all transparency ready to face as institutions of higher education if we want to transform higher ed to embrace and embed national service as part of its being. One is an issue of funding. National service requires at a minimum a 24% match of total budget in cash or in-kind funding. That is an amount that increases after 3 years to something higher than that, and ultimately, I think after 10 years to 50% match. So it's an amount that grows and grows and grows. And the idea is you want the Corporation for National Community Service wants the community to invest in itself, and that's the ambition. We've addressed this by building a shared investment model and strong partnerships with community organizations and our partners. With the calculation for this first year, for the first two AmeriCorps members hosted by an organization, $8,000 is what they're contributing, $2,500 for each additional member. That's an amount that is going to either have to increase in the years ahead as the match requirement increases, or we're going to have to find other sources of funding. So there will have to be a charitable foundation arm attached to national service. Not a bad thing, but just a reality that we have to face. How to classify AmeriCorps members is is a challenge, and became an 11th hour challenge as we prepared our operational grant proposal. Whether they are consultants, whether they are hourly paid people. By federal law, they cannot be deemed employees, but yet they have to be provided health insurance and other benefits. So there is some dilemma as to how to call them. UCF has solved this by calling them. Actually, I don't know what we call them, but we give them their living allowance of $15,100 per year through a stipend. And it's paid on a fixed schedule, no timesheet required for processing hourly payment, and they are not employees. So that worked out, but that took some hustling to figure out how that works, how that fits within our HR system, within our scholarship systems. Every institution will be different in that regard. Recruitment is a challenge, particularly with the program with 54 plus AmeriCorps members as we hopefully grow this program and other programs like it around the country over the years. So the opportunity is to be innovative, like the 2+1+2, like partnerships with veterans groups. We have the bureaucracy versus bureaucracy challenge, and we've had delays in our own planning process, which set us back in some respects, but we were able to navigate with some persistence and some pushing in order to get everything aligned. And I can go into more details as to what some of these bureaucratic barriers have been. And the same applies with lawyer versus lawyer, and the ever present dilemma of non-negotiable federal requirements that simply have to be negotiated for the institution, the university, to accept them. But they can't be negotiated. They're off limits, basically, for negotiation. So how do you work through those elements, negotiating the non-negotiables? And that's so we had at least one conference call, probably more than that, with lawyers for UCF and Volunteer Florida to help resolve some of these issues. So it's not an easy lift. It takes a lot of investment, and it's an investment that does not align naturally with the other standard typical missions and measures of university success. So our argument is we need to change that model, rethink about what our measurements are, and advocate for different measures and different ranking systems that are inclusive of the citizenship role and citizen cultivation role of higher education institutions. And so with that, I will stop sharing my screen and we can go to questions. There are a couple that popped into the chat box. Justin asked that it might be a timely opportunity to have state policy change to grant in-state tuition to AmeriCorps programs. Jared agreed, and I think we can all agree. And so this is something that we as a university and others can take up and advocate for to work with our university lobbyists, but we've got to go through channels to get on the lobbying agenda and make that happen. That's probably a multi-year proposition before something like that can actually occur, but it's an admirable goal. The shorter term goal is to provide a match to the education award, which is still hard to do, particularly in the financial climate that we're in right now. It requires investment of resources that are currently scarce, more so than usual. Jenny is asking, regarding pathways to employment and service, I know I switched my major to education after taking an honors college English class at UCF that had a service learning component. The question is, are there other gen ed, general education courses that incorporate service learning? Are there opportunities for undergraduate minors or certificates in service? I don't know. We can get the statistics on what gen ed courses have service learning. Students, undergrads, can get a service learning certificate if they complete a certain number of courses that are service learning designated by the university. That is a possibility. So that designation would appear on the diploma, I believe. That's not a perfect system. Not all service learning courses are created the same. Some are very transactional. Some are more reflective and values based. Some are more critically oriented and focused on community change rather than transaction, like creating a strategic plan for an organization, as opposed to, say, mobilizing to create anti-racist policies and programs in society, right? Something like this. So all service learning courses are not treated the same or created the same, but there is opportunity for that. Jenny's also asking, what about incorporating them into Gordon Rule courses? Course credit with service. So you love it. That's separate. Different. So Jenny, I'm going to express my ignorance. What's a Gordon Rule course?
The Gordon Rule courses. Hi, it's good to see you. And my cat has decided to make an appearance as well. Those are the courses that undergrads have to take that have a particular word count and writing component as well as math component. It's required from Florida that they take these courses. So it's your English course, your speech course, courses that have a heavy writing component. And I think you have to take 12 hours. Somebody might be more knowledgeable about that with me, of a Gordon Rule of a writing course. So if you have service incorporated that would also include the reflective piece. And I know in the English course I took, instead of writing a canned essay, I was able to go out. I was working in a school and then reflect on that process. And that was really transitional for me. And I know for other students in the class as well. Yeah. So by linking those two together, the students have to take a Gordon Rule class. It's already an institution at UCF. Incorporating service learning component would add to that. It's already there. It's not reinventing the wheel.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great point. I think generally there are opportunities to put service into courses across curricula, across disciplines. How to do it and providing the training for faculty to do it well is important if we want service learning to be successful. One of the research studies that Jared cited before, and then the research on service learning generally, that service learning begets an interest in volunteering and further work. That's true, but it also matters how the service learning is implemented. So service learning without reflection doesn't really work all that well, right? And so providing training to our faculty is critical. The office that I lead at UCF Downtown, Community Engaged Scholarship, we're hosting a seminar series right now. We had a guest a couple of weeks ago, Dr. Marcel Morales from Campus Compact, who presented on these service learning questions, and an issue was raised as to the preparedness of faculty to actually enter communities, particularly diverse communities, because, and I think Randy Stoker, who's our guest speaker on Tuesday next week in the seminar series, he has written books on the harm that could come from service learning not well applied. Right. And that applies to any kind of service activity. So before putting service learning or encouraging active service learning incorporation across the curriculum, we do need to make sure that there's a training component. Just like we train faculty to teach effectively online, we need to be able to train faculty, maybe require faculty to go through a service learning training before they teach a service learning course. It's something that I haven't really thought too much through, but that would be my one cautionary note on that.
I want to also touch upon the Gordon Rule. I'm very familiar with it. I'm a recent graduate. I want to make sure that we're, take precautionary measures, because AmeriCorp is it's a very challenging year and a humbling experience, and perhaps it's not for everyone. This is more so that what we're proposing is to encourage and to empower people, but you will have certain individuals who are not equipped to serve, either mentally, emotionally. But for those who are, we want to encourage that. And so making it a requirement might not necessarily be a productive way forward, but definitely incorporating into service learning and to train those faculty to teach, students in that field will be beneficial. But applying it for the Gordon Rule is a little, it's a little unstable just because of what it takes to actually serve in AmeriCorps and how to make a very big impact on these communities. So I just wanted to note that really quick.
And so we're at the ending hour. So let me just very quickly run through the rest of the chat. So it's in the recording, and we note these things. First, Doug Goodman notes that the lunch lecture is focusing by Dr. Moynihan from Georgetown University, is focusing on administrative burdens as we talk about the administrative burdens of producing a national service program. So yes, please attend that lunch. Dr. Moynihan has written an excellent book on the question of administrative burden, so I strongly encourage that. Justin Miller is building on the idea of veterans and the importance of where veterans are falling into the wrong groups after leaving military service. So this is an excellent opportunity. Plus the idea of a military transition gap year, and in conjunction with the Department of Defense Skill Bridge program. So I'm going to put that in my parking lot, Justin, as something that we can talk about further. That sounds like definitely worth pursuing here. And then last question from Mirtha: does the Central Florida Service Collective Group partner with UCF's SDES departments? Jared?
I don't. For SDES, I mean, we do within the Office of Student Involvement. So I know that Volunteer UCF, the Alternative Break Program, their GA, they're a part of the collective. I know Lizzys a part of the collective, with the Institute is part of the collective. If there are other SDES entities that you know of that would be a good fit for it, Martha, I'd be more than happy to include them in, because we're always looking for other ways of partnering.
Yeah. And just for the video, anybody who happens to be watching the video, SDES is the Student Development Enrollment Services. So, and that's that. So it's 10:32. We're past our time. Any last words?
Great panel, inspiring mission. You guys are awesome.
Thank you, everybody. Enjoy the rest of the conference day. See you around.